week is going to take her oral exams for practitioners, so I wish you well with that. I'm sure that you're going to do swimmingly beautifully. So, congratulations. So, Namaste.
Namaste.
That's a Hindu term. You know, I'm going to cry throughout, so just brace yourself, you know. So Nama means, it's a Hindu word that means bow to. And Te means you, so I bow to you. And the mudra, the hand gesture, in India, it suffices. So in India, usually they don't use the words, they just use the gesture to express that when you are in that place within your heart that is love, that is peace, that is trust, that is power, and I am in that place. When you are in that place and I am in that place, we are one. So when we say Namaste, it's just a whole conversation of unity and love and power. So it's a matter of coming to the place of living from that space, of being able to remember and remind yourself that no matter what is going on, the truth is that we are all coming from that space of the heart. You know, we've often heard it said that we're spiritual beings living a human life. But conversely, and the whole idea of Namaste is that we are human beings living a spiritual life. And it is a way of reminding ourselves of our spirituality. So it's not a matter of how do I want to say, it's not a matter of trying. It's a matter of being. So when you're living in the Namaste heart, you are actually knowing the truth. So for instance, if you say to yourself, well, I'm just not going to be judgmental, just holding to non-judgment. If you've said to yourself, I'm going to be non-judgmental, it's already too late. You've missed it. If you talk about unconditional love, about loving unconditionally, it's too late. So the Namaste heart is about not remembering to be in that place, but being in that place, living from that place. So there's a fellow named Aman Matwan who wrote a book, Yes You Can Change the World, and he talks about having a conversation with his father, who is Indian. And so his father, he was having troubles living in the Namaste heart. I don't know about you, but it's tough. It's a tough place to hang to. So his dad was explaining to him that being kind is not the same as living from a Namaste place. So, for instance, you have a friend, say, and your friend, you're having some troubles, and your friend says, what do you need? What can I do for you? That's a kind place to live. the person who lives in the Namaste heart recognizes and acknowledges in their heart that you're having a tough time, and maybe take you out to the mountains, because they have recognized and acknowledged to themselves, they've noticed about you that you are at peace and at harmony in the mountains. So they're providing for you that place of love from that place of knowing, that spirit of open heart. So Aman is saying to his dad, well, how do you live with difficult people? How do you get to that place that you can live Namaste when you really are not there? So that's an interesting question, and one we're going to talk about. So I want to tell you just briefly, when my boys were at home, they were growing up, and Rafe was, I don't know, 13, 14, something like that. And I would perhaps go off a little motherly because, there's a soccer shoe on the kitchen table, or the dog hadn't been fed. And so, I'd do my mom thing of maybe ranting, and Rafe would say, Namaste, Mama. And I just had to laugh at him and be furious at him at the same time. That's just the whole gig. So yesterday I was at Target, and it was crowded, it was busy, and I started to pull into this space, and a young girl got out of the car just as I was pulling in, and I stopped, and my window was down, and I said to her, come on, I don't want to scare you. I'll wait for you. And I did, and then I pulled in the parking space, and her mother came up behind me, and she said, we just had this very same experience at another store. She said, my daughter got out of the car, and some woman wanted to pull in, and the woman just went off and screaming and yelling and using all kinds of foul language. And she said, it was awful. We had to leave. So that woman that was driving the car wasn't in a very Namaste place, right?
No, not so much.
So I said to this woman, the nice mother, I said, yeah, it's scary. It's scary to think how close some people are living on the edge. And this woman said, well, she wasn't a person, she was a brute. And as we were having this conversation, down the aisle, here comes another car, and this guy is starting to scream and yell because somebody else had pulled in his parking space, and he was using all of this conversation. It was just like, oh, namaste, 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 namaste. So I used to be a drug and alcohol counselor, I think a lot of you know. And I had a client who said to me, I'm an animal. And I just would not hear that. I said, no, don't be talking about that. No, of course you're not. Your behavior may be not wonderful, but you're an expression of God. And then she sat down and she told me why she was thinking of herself as an animal. And I'm not going to relate that story to you, but it was shocking. It was amazing to me. And I have to say that animals do not behave in the way that she was describing to me that she behaved. And I was so glad that I had been able to get myself to that place of the heart and that place of living Namaste before she related her story, because it was difficult to hear. And then she continued telling me about herself and about the way she was raised. And she was raised brutishly, and therefore she was behaving brutishly. So when we get to that place that maybe we're not actually able to see the Spirit of God within someone, then what do we do? I think of it a lot like being in Reno on a cloudy day, on a rainy day, right? Can't see the sun. You cannot see the sun because it's covered with clouds, and yet we know that the sun is there. And that is the same way of dealing with people who are brutish, who are misbehave extravagantly. It is knowing that the sun is there. You know, we talk about seeing is believing, but in metaphysics, it is the believing that is the seeing. And when we come from the place that we actually believe that the God is in everyone, when we come to that place of understanding the sun is always shining, the heart is always filled with spirit, because that's the way that it is. We are all God made manifest. When we come to the place of believing that, then that is what starts showing up for us. It is believing it, and then we'll see it. But we seem to get it all confused and mixed up in our minds, don't we? So what's to be done? Hannah's very restless today. I've never heard her bark. Maybe one little bark. Something's going on with her. So how do we live from the Namaste heart? It's about making space in our lives to live that way. It's about knowing from that deep place of what people may need. It's about making connections with people. A simple thing like waiting for somebody to get out of their car before you drive in the drive spot, the parking space. I mean, that's pretty simple. And yet, obviously a lot of people don't do that. It's about going to the grocery store and looking people in the eye, making contact. Seeing and acknowledging them as human beings having a spiritual experience. There was a story, I don't know where I read this or when I read it, but it sort of sums up a lot of this point that I'm trying to make. It was a dark and ugly day in an airport, and all of the planes were being detained and held, and folks were sleeping around, and it's very disturbing. You know, and people think that they're the only ones, and if they can't get on that airplane, then it's something to do with that counter person that really doesn't like them, and they really believe that if they yell enough, that's going to clear the weather up, and they're going to get on that plane.
Not so much.
They do. They believe that. So this is a story about a man who was a little bit more rational. And he was watching this poor counter woman trying to deal with those that were frustrated about not getting on the airplane. And so he took his place in line, and he waited, and he waited, and he waited, and finally he got up to the counter, and he said to this counter person, I don't want anything except what I'd like for you to do is just act busy for a few minutes and take a moment and gather yourself and know that you're doing the best you can. So he stood there, looking very authoritative, while she occupied herself on the computer, gathering herself. She thanked him, of course, profusely. But that's Namaste. Seeing a need and stepping into it, caring about people from that hard place, being kind before you're asked, noticing what is going on before. So you could think about perhaps just playing a little game with yourself. Just playing with yourself and saying, what does this person need? Just a little game. So if you're at the grocery store and you see someone who maybe, which happens to me, can't reach the top shelf, what would be the little Namaste thing to do?
If you were tall, get the thing down for that.
Thank you. Give him a hike. Yeah. There are all sorts of opportunities for us to play with it, to play with ourselves, and to come up with that Namaste action. What does that person need? What can we do to empathetically meet other people's needs before they ask? That's the Namaste way of living life, from that place of the heart. Not waiting to be asked and then feeling like you're such a good person. Yeah, I'm good. But stepping into the need before it's expressed, empathetically understanding what someone needs, and supplying that and filling that. That's the Namaste way of living from the heart. We all believe that we are good people. Right? And no matter how badly I may act, still I know that I'm a good person. I don't know one person, other than my client who thought she was an animal. I don't know one person who actually believes that they're a bad person. We all believe that we're good. And the Namaste way of living a life is to not only know that about yourself, but to also know that about everyone else. That's knowing the truth. That's living from a place of love. That's living with a Namaste heart. So, I say to you all, in the most sincere way, I love you. Namaste. So I would invite the practitioners to stand and join with me. And Zelma, why don't you join us too, just for practice, okay? So, knowing that we are God, and we are human beings having a spiritual experience. And I invite you to join with me as we do that in a way that works for you. Holding your heart open, allowing yourself to move into that light that is the true nature of your being. Allowing yourself to connect with that place within. That is your deepest God self. Consciously making a declaration to be the hands, the eyes, the ears, and the mouth of the divine. Consciously making a personal agreement to hold your heart open and to trust and know that God is living, moving, breathing through all things and all people. And so, even in the darkest of days, the cloudiest of days, trusting and knowing that the sun is always shining, and the sun will always rise. And in that same way, trusting and knowing the good in all humans. Trusting and knowing the good will always bubble up, and God will shine through. And making a personal declaration to allow that to occur every day and every moment of your life. Permitting yourself to live from that deep namaste, bowing to the God within, and I give thanks for it. all, knowing that as I believe it, it is done. And I invite you to join with me in that knowing and that declaration by saying,